part 4. Part 4 out of 5. I really want to finish this series because it's so interesting. I still want to know everything that he's gonna, well, listen to everything he's gotta tell and say, and everything that he's researched. I really like this guy's content. For the people who are asking in the comment section where he's standing, this is Slovenia. This is a lake called the Bled, and you can go there for swimming, you can go kayaking there. That's a real nice lake, real nice nature park. During the summer it's pretty full, so I don't know if it's still fun like it used to be, but it used to be really cool. And on the middle you have like a church, an old monastery. If you go there and ring the bell, they say you can you can make a wish and that wish will come true. So it's the legend behind the Lake of Bled. And then in the corner in the left you have the what is it called? The old castle of Bled. Let's start this fourth part, and let's continue the story, the Balkan history story.
The Bosnian War happened because a man with a second-grade education became one of the most respected leaders in all history. In this video, the fourth in our 5-part series, I intend to show you how.
Croatia, brothers at arms.
Josip Broz Tito believed in Yugoslavia. He believed in the unity of his people. Well, so long as those people were communist anyway. The story of his rise is the story of a battle against a fellow Croat for the very souls of Yugoslavia, a fascist so deeply perverse he made Himmler feel disgust. His name was Ante Pavelic, and he didn't just inflict horror, he reveled in it. He famously said that knives, pistols, machine guns, and bombs, these were the idols, the bells that would announce the dawn of the resurrection of an independent Croatia. And the one thing that he and Tito shared in common was an unapologetic justification for whatever deaths were required to achieve their goals. It's just that Pavelic seemed to enjoy it. It can be.
He was a pretty sicko when it comes to warfare. The things that the Croatian fascists did during World War II, some of their acts were more brutal than the Germans, that even the Germans were like, whoa, what the fuck, you guys need to calm down. Like, they were going way further than SS, Nazis, etc.
It'd be hard to see how a man like him comes to power. He was no pulpit for the glory of his people. He wasn't personification of charisma. He was fear. A man so terrified of what might come to his door that he was willing to burn down his entire house just to avoid it. He was a psychopath aiming for a purity that doesn't exist, that can't exist. But while he would open the lock, it was Italy who gave him that key. Mussolini saw in him a way to recolonize the Venetian Adriatic, and in turn he saw in Mussolini a way to purge the lands that he claimed as his. Hitler objected. He was no more a fan of the Serbs than Pavelic, but it was in his best interest to keep Yugoslavia united, at least for the time being. Their workforce was better spent providing resources for his war machine than in turmoil killing themselves. But as the years progressed, his hand was forced, and in 1941 the Kingdom of Yugoslavia was invaded by the Axis and split apart into many little rump states. In 10 days, it was completely overrun and destroyed. The Germans felt that the Serbs, due to their natural alignment with Russia, were not really trustworthy allies, and Italy had been working for years to install their puppet fascists in Zagreb anyway, so they just focused on them. And with a few promises that they'd kill Jews alongside, the newly formed independent Croatia became a mass grave into which they sank their Serbs. The German propaganda machine began aligning their national pseudoscience to confirm the superiority of the Croatians alongside them. It isn't just their unique history, they'd say, it was their bloodline. Croats were clearly Germans. They're not Slavs. Their blood's Aryan. They're different. So long as they fought with the Nazis, everybody who knew what was good for them would agree they're different. And for his part, Pavelic was certainly different. The brutality that he'd inflict would be among the worst of the war anywhere in the world. His stated aim, out loud, his public goal, was to leave a third of the Serbs exiled, a third converted, and a third dead. In 4 years, his...
Yeah, and he was really trying to achieve those goals. He set those goals to exterminate the Serbs, and he was sending, like, making camps, prison camps, execution camps for children, for, it's just horrible shit.
Ustaše fanatically killed over 250,000 people towards that aim. To fulfill promises made to Hitler, now his military and political benefactor, he killed over 80% of Croatia's Jews. This had nothing to do with war. War was just a cover, an unshackling of the humanity that binds these monsters' hands. Elderly women and children were hacked to death with machetes. Religious leaders were slaughtered and their churches were burnt to the ground for no other reason than who they were. Innocent men had their heads cut off with their farm equipment. Nobody was spared. Nobody was meant to be spared. They purged down the old lines: religion, language, identity. In an independent Croatian state, the genocide would continue until everyone felt united, until everyone said that they were Croatian. You might be Muslim, you might be Catholic, you might once have been Orthodox, but now you are Croatian. What you are not, what you cannot be, is a Serb.
Yeah, the way he does it, that's the problem. The way he is trying to achieve this goal is the problem. And Tito did it way differently. He wanted Yugoslavia as a united thing, but he did not exterminate other people in order to do so. He played it very political, to say so. But I think he'll come back to that later on in the video.
It's ethnic nationalism at its core, at its nub. So perhaps it's only fitting that it was a Croat who destroyed it. A man offering a completely new identity for the people of the Balkans to consider, an identity that smashed through everything that came before. It was the East tugging back at the center. It was Josip Broz Tito, the right arm of communist Yugoslavia. And echoing out from his partisan forest base was the offer of nothing less than the complete dissolution of the old world order. The schism of religion would be excised by removing religion itself. The schism of ethnicity by a greater calling. No more kings, no more countries. Communism would be deeper than blood. Duty to the state before everything. And like all unobtainable utopian ideals, it drew in people like moths to a flame. Young men and women to die for hope. And those who heeded his call came from all over the Balkans. It was a truly multi-ethnic force. Montenegrins, Macedonians, Slovenes, Croats, Bosniak Serbs, even the occasional Albanian. The mud of the Balkans had been pressed back into stone and squeezed on all sides. Tito would hold the line, and he would win. As the dreams of those Catholic fascists shot themselves in that bunker in Berlin, the once Orthodox atheists of the East charged through the independent state of Croatia, unleashing a pent-up fury onto those who had purged their families and comrades. And with each new atonement forced back upon them, the Catholic Church drove their wedge as much as their new position would allow. They were surely terrified, but
He doesn't mention that the Chetniks and also the partisans work together, were both killing as much Ustaše as they could for the Allies in order to gain their trust, so after the war they would be in control, and Serbs are doing the same thing.
by this sweeping a-religious atheist, now small c away from Rome Empire, and the Pope decided to do what he does best. He excommunicated Tito. But it was for killing Croatian priests involved in the genocide, which feels kind of odd. A form of holiness I suspect you have to be very devoutly Catholic to understand. Because it seems to me like God was fine hacking those Serb children to pieces, but apparently communism's a step too far. It's kind of...
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of telling it. I totally agree. I'm like, what the fuck? And then, yeah, that's what, like, religious leaders in general, they just can flip the whole story around so easily and just, yeah, God wants it, and then everyone's like, oh, okay, God wants it, then yeah, okay, well, we're cool with that, okay. So no, today we're not gonna invade another country. Today we're gonna slaughter all these kind of children and blah blah blah. Oh, if God wants it, yeah, okay. If God wants it, yeah, we're all cool with that. Religious leaders are just, oh my God, they control the mind of people.
Weird how God plays politics like that. But as ever, it wasn't just the West. The pressure came from both sides. United in ideology is not united in practice. The reality of communism is not a brotherhood. Camaraderie is propaganda for the plebs. The USSR wanted Yugoslavia, not as an equal, but as a glorified colony. They wanted to steal their factories, they wanted to steal their resources. They'd done it to all the other satellite states. There's no reason to suspect that's not what they wanted here. Before Tito even got the bearings of his new position, Stalin had already started his plans to kill him. Because after all, you can't have two leaders of the same personality cult. Tito was everything that Stalin feared. Tito was ruthless, and he had the pedigree. He came from a working class background where he had to leave school in the 2nd grade to do metal work to help his single mother. I mean, can you get a better origin story? He was an international war hero. He even fought for Lenin in Russia. He organized what was considered the most successful resistance against the Nazis anywhere on earth, and he fought against the imperialists, the nationalists.
Most impressive resistance against the Nazis anywhere in the world, and this is something it's not told in the history books, and it annoys the living fuck out of me that we're only learning about America this, America that, Great Britain this, Great Britain that. Fuck off, man. Fuck off. Like, seriously, like, the amount of countries in Eastern Europe that had resistance, like the Polish people, for example, as well, the Balkans, there were so much more bloody fights, like really bloody fights, and so much resistance in other countries, which is never mentioned in the history books. Never. I haven't learned that in school. Never. They only give you like two rules of text, you know, on an entire page of a book that's like 500 pages about the history. Like, why? Tito itself is a big leader. Also, in the Dutch history, I've been to Dutch schools, I've been to Bosnian schools. In Bosnian schools, they do mention it quite often. But Dutch schools, nope. German schools, nope. Belgian schools, nope. Why? It's such a big part of history. Why are they trying just to hide it? Why? I just don't really... It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So many people died for the freedom of Western Europe, and the resistance there was also there not only for the Balkans, but for Europe as well. And yeah, this also shows that how great Tito was in strategic warfare and planning like attacks and yada yada yada. And of course he was a big enemy of Stalin. So people were saying from the beginning in the other video that China is rebuilding the Balkans. This guy says, yeah, they were communist, just like Russia. No, like the USSR. No, not at all. Completely different. Completely different. Why the hell would Stalin try to kill Tito and be afraid of him if it was the same? You see? Just read. Do research.
Nationalists, the fascists, and the church, and won every single time. He was the picture-perfect communist. He even had all the fancy suits to prove it. Then, in turn, naturally, many people did love him, or at least the image that he projected of himself. In his day, it would not be wrong to say that his cult of personality was built just as much on deep affection as it was fear. Yet, fear still played a valuable role. He may have been a brilliant leader, and I don't question if he truly loved the concept of Yugoslavia, but he was still a flawed human at the helm of a post-war communist state. He was still a man who would imprison or kill any enemies who threatened his rule.
Of course, because he studied history very well, and he saw what happened to the other Yugoslav attempts to say so, and people tried to unify countries like this to build a strong... There was threats all the time. What do you do with threats? You eliminate them as quickly as possible, and that's the only reason why his Yugoslavia lasted for so long. The only reason why, because he had such a good secret service that was picking up, eliminating everyone who could try and attempt to kill him or to destroy something within the country. And not only within the borders of Yugoslavia, but also worldwide. He had secret services watching nationalist Croatians, nationalist Serbians abroad and track them and spy on them to prevent the breakup of Yugoslavia. This is what kept this country together for so long. So you can say it is bad, but looking at the cause and the type of people, because he's saying people, but he's not saying that they were criminals, that they're planning assassination attempts, that they were doing all kinds of stuff which were against the rules of Yugoslavia also, and also look against international rules. Like, it's pretty obvious that you cannot kill someone, or you're not allowed to kill someone within any country worldwide, or plan an assassination on a world leader.
He wasn't the worst of communism. His cruelty was definitely not that of Stalin or Mao or even that of Pavelic. But that said, the people dying in his work camps probably weren't too concerned about the nuance. When Stalin did come to kill him, it was as plain as day. By the time they removed Yugoslavia from the Soviet Brotherhood, Tito was already in talks with the West to rekindle those flames. As any true Yugoslav leader must, he innately understood what it took to survive living on a fault line. He would not be pulled too far in either direction, but instead find a way to tie these ropes together. And he correctly guessed that the West would forgive his transgressions for a seat back at the table, the feeling of splitting apart communist unity meaning much more to them than just a few dead priests. And so Yugoslavia would become the knot that kept the world balanced. With American support, it would boast the fourth largest army in the world, and Stalin's invasion would never come.
The fourth largest army in the world. I know that I said that before, and people said that it was not correct, that it was only Europe, and sending me all kinds of links. This guy is doing his research pretty well, and he's saying it as well. Did he say world or Europe, or am I just stupid now? Let me see.
Army in the world.
In the world.
And Stalin's invasion would never come. Tito would protect his people. And yet, even with his power secured, Tito was still a soldier, and he saw enemies all around him, real or imagined. So for nearly a decade, Yugoslavia would undergo a covert campaign of silencing dissent through force. Well, on paper, it was aimed at Nazi collaborators and Stalinists and extreme nationalists and all the other great propaganda.
Exactly, that's the famous Secret Service.
In reality, it extended to a number of people who simply believed differently than he did. Innocent people who were imprisoned or even killed for nothing more than a small-time political grudge from some local official with too much power and not...
That's true. That's partially true. There were a lot of corrupt leaders. Let's say a mayor or something, local leader, who has a grudge for someone and just tells them to pick him up because he's extremely nationalist, blah, 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 blah. Yes, abuse of power. You have this in every state, in every country. So this is not something I think you can blame the country system for, because it happens today as well, like racism and stuff. Cops pick out like black people earlier. You know, there's always some form of power abuse by a government, or holes, let's call it holes, or bad things of a system. And this was one of them, yes, but it's really arguable how many people were innocent that were present. This is something there are no numbers on, no nothing. It just gets blown up by this. And I truly believe that, yeah, there were innocent people maybe there. Well, innocent, say so, but people who were just fucked over by a local leader or someone who just snitched on them or something like that. But I truly believe that the majority of people who were there were criminals. Bad criminals.
Not enough oversight. And well, it would be a stretch to say that he was more brutal than those who came before or after him. He was undeniably brutal. But just as with Khrushchev and the Soviet Union, eventually he recognized that fear can only get so far in pacifying a mob. And with Stalin in the ground and NATO and the kinder, softer Soviet Union on his side, he turned a new leaf. Fear was replaced by promise. And from 1955 forward, political prisons would be closed and torn down, and the media would be given a slight relaxation on rights, and people would be on the road to individual personal freedom, at least from their point of view.
Exactly.
Just the communist version of individual personal freedom.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's the communist version of individual freedom. You could do whatever you want. You could travel wherever you want. You could believe in whatever you want, but not in public. Not always in public, depending on topic, of course. You cannot, let's say, exercise your religion in public or show your religion in public. You should go to the holy house from whatever religion, or practice your religion at home. They didn't want you to show in public that you were different or try to diversify yourself from someone else because of religion.
Well, actually, not even the communist version, the Titoist version. A socialized society with just the slightest hint of this free market capitalism. A whiff to make America feel like the pie was baking, even if it wasn't. At least on paper, he walked the line between hemispheres, sort of like the communist reflection of the Nordic model. But in reality, Tito's Yugoslavia started collapsing the day it began. It was essentially structured as a nation-sized Ponzi scheme where every year things got worse, but nobody in the organization could possibly admit it. The pre-war economic backbones of Slovenia and Croatia would be forced to carry the burden of communism's failures like overweighted mules for decades, and eventually it would have to come to a head. There was just no money left.
The best economics from all those ex-Yugoslav countries were Slovenia and Croatia. Slovenia being ahead miles from everyone. And when the money ran out, they made these big scams and scammed America. The Yugo car is a scam for America. They promised to make a cheap car with really quality, blah, 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 for the American people, and it turned out to be a shit car where they just scammed money. They made the Apollo 2 space program, sold it to America, told it that it was already an operational rocket that can go to the moon, and then it wasn't. They scammed America for billions of dollars.
By the 1980s, as unemployment reached a full quarter of the population, Yugoslavia entered a spiral of bankruptcy that it could never hope to return from. But to his credit, it wasn't as if Tito wanted a bad economy. He just didn't know how to fix it. He wasn't some genius scholar. He was a vain soldier who didn't make it out of grade school. He was doing everything he could with the tools he understood himself to have.
Exactly.
It's just mostly what he had was charisma. Statistically, Titoism would do no better than Soviet-style communism. It just got better press. Yet despite its failures in the region where it lingered the longest, it's still often spoken of positively today. While nations like Slovenia have made glorifying his name unconstitutional, there are still many people willing to sing his praises between their walls. They were willing to put up with the hardship, because to them, the beauty of Tito's Yugoslavia was in the identity it provided, not the economy. It was
Exactly. It was providing us with one single passport, the Yugoslav passport. It was providing us with the freedom to travel and to be accepted. Like the Yugoslav passport was one of the most worthy passports in the world. You could go to I think it was except for 2 countries without a visa. That's something that's not even like today, for today's standards, I don't think a single country has that you can just travel through basically almost every country without a visa. And other continents as well, of course. That's really impressive, and it united the people on so many different levels. This is what the people missed and wanted. And economics and everything. Yeah, you weren't rich, but you had a roof over your head. You had food on the table, and you were not being bombed to pieces. You could go on holiday every year. It's like you had these basic things that maybe wouldn't mean much at the time, but compared to today's standards, it was ahead of the people now in Western Europe when it comes to the living standards. And yeah, a lot of people were unemployed registered, but were farmers.
Peace it restored. It was an end to the genocide. It was an end to Pavelic. It held a respected place at the international table for generations and provided a connection to something larger than the petty squabbles of home. For many, socialist Yugoslavia's power wasn't its military. It wasn't its economy. It wasn't even its people. It was Tito. And when that guy dies, what can you do? The nation was bankrupt, and it had started fraying on all sides. Despite 2 full generations together, the mud that had hardened in that world war was starting to dissolve again.
Before his funeral, people in Sarajevo started passing around the joke. When we put him in the ground, are we going to start shooting each other again? It's probably funny at the time. It broke the tension. but I sincerely doubt anybody is laughing now.
Yeah, nobody is laughing now. I've been to this statue as well. It's really stupid, because especially when you hear right now that when he's saying, yeah, it was passed around as a joke, and a couple of years later it just turns all to reality. Just really sad.
More on that next time. This is Rare Earth.
Yeah. It's all true. And I gave you some additional information because it was really summarized too short and too negative, in my opinion. There was still some, it's the truth, but he didn't give enough arguments or enough back information on some items, so I tried to add that information in there. Yeah, really impressive episode once again. So Rare Earth, this is a real nice series. There's one episode left, so I hope you guys subscribe so we can check that episode out as well. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think of the statements that were made during this video? What do you think of this particular part, these couple of years in history, decades in history? You said that Rare Earth is saying about this period. I do agree with him. So I gave additional information, I do agree with him, but some things were worth giving extra information. So I hope you guys liked this video, and I see you in the next video. Last part coming up, and have a nice day. Bye. Ciao.
Perfect.